Hey, what's up everybody? It is Dream, and I'm back this time for my Varkyn Reclear farm video. As with my last two guides, Tikilin and Glossum, I have created a static turn order that you can use with my comp to clear him in about 8 minutes or 15 turns. If you've already watched my other two Reclear farm guides, you'll notice that this one is a little bit slower than those two are. And that is because this is not the strat that I used to personally farm my Varkyn to level 100. The strat that I used to kill him only involved one break and a lot of awakened units and awakened 4 accessories to pound him down and basically kill him before the ads are even dead. But for these guide videos, I try to shoot for comps and strategies that anyone who has these units, barring a few replaceable characters, can use the outline to clear with. So the comp that I'm showing in this video was made specifically for this video and for a guide and outline that other people can use. This strat that I'm about to show you involves 2 breaks on Varkyn, along with a slow kill on each of the ads, allowing multiple turns for you to tune your damage and your output to what you can do and what you need for your fight specifically. So now let's go into the composition, what units you can replace with who, and how the overall strategy is going to work. Of course, as always, you do not require any of these units to be awakened, and you also do not require any of the Awakening 4 accessories that I've included in my composition. First, let's talk about our semi-required units, this being Adia, Fior, Sophia, Scarecrow, and Anyas. Now, the reason that I say semi-required is that they do have some individual replacements. However, the more replacements you have for these core units, the more turns you're probably going to have to add to the overall clear. For example, someone like Adia or Fior could be replaced with a Sigrid or a Trish. However, they do much less damage than the 5-star versions of these characters. With the buffs that Lionel received during his global release, he is also a good option to slot in for these 2-sword waifus. But something like a Khorne and a Tikilin don't really replace them due to their lack of single target shield shave ability. They could technically replace Sophia if you were to go a triple warrior composition, but that would require about 2 extra turns along with you leaving the dancer alive as your extra ad instead of the researcher. Speaking of ad slayers, Scarecrow is just going to be your overall most consistent. I've included Hannet along with him in this build to speed up the turns a little bit. However, he is the bread and butter on getting those shields off the ads. Whereas Hannet is basically replaceable by a Cardona 1-to-1 or even a highly invested Camilla if you have her from your Tiki clears. Now on the heal side of things, Anyas is both our regen healer and our upfront healer, meaning that if you have to replace her with something like a Teo or a Cedric, you're probably going to require a second healer like Ramona or Millard in the slot that Tressa is in. Tressa's job in this composition is basically to help me be more consistent on killing ads, so she's replaceable with anything that can hit the ads either a lot of times and/or very hard. So something like a Khorne would fit in here, a Gilderoy, Zonta if you have him, or even a Barat if you have to go with the budget build. Cardona if she's not already replacing Hannet on your team, a second healer like I just talked about, or even a buffer like Lynette or Primrose. However, going with a healer or a buffer in that slot is going to put more weight on your other 3 characters on how much damage they have to do to successfully kill the ads and to successfully kill Varkyn. And last but not least, that leaves us Viola, who is, of course, again, replaceable by Primrose, but Viola is definitely going to be the best in slot for keeping things consistent, keeping you safe, and getting easy debuffs onto the mobs without having to constantly swap Primrose in. And so with all that said, let's take a peek at our turn order. Just like my other guides, I have left notes next to certain turns where you can choose to pump more damage into ads, choose to pump more damage into Varkyn, whatever your team needs to get you successfully through the strategy. If you are using any 4-star replacements, you're probably going to have to add a turn where I say you will, and you'll probably have to add some extra damage onto Varkyn. During his 2 break turns, I've planned a lot of overkill damage or possible damage so that you can help compensate for characters missing awakenings or having less accessories. Again, this is just a general game plan, so feel free to augment certain turns to help fit your characters and your party's strength. Now let's jump into the fight itself. Our first turn is going to be all about whittling the shields down on our ads. We got Tressa going in for the Swift Trifold on the Dancer ad, Hannet going Arrow Storm, Scarecrow going Shower of Arrows, and Anyas getting our full regen on the front line. Hannet's AoE, of course, does have a random element to it. It hits anywhere from 3 to 5 times every single time you use it. However, the way that I've slotted into our composition, it does not matter how many times she hits. The more hits, the better. It does more damage, but we don't rely on it for any of the turn orders. Once Tressa has basically evened out the ad shields, we start swapping that slot to Adia so that she can start getting 3 break hits onto Varkyn every single turn. We continue doing our Storm of Arrows, and then Viola switches over to Debilitate onto the Researcher since he is the tankier ad. This will be leading us into our first break turn on the ads, in which we are going to pump as much damage as we can into them. RNG wise, those first 2 turns are really the scariest on them just insta-killing a single unit by everything getting targeted on one person. But to help stabilize us for the middle of the fight, we will be switching Viola to anti-attack onto Varkyn, and then we are using our Sophia to start nuking down the Dancer ad, Deadly Arrow from Hannet to nuke both of the ads, and then Adia still going in on Varkyn, slowly whittling him down along with his shields. It is during turns like this where you're going to start remembering your kind of team's output and damage and where you're critting and where you're not critting so that you can help optimize later down in the fight. You'll see there's a turn where you basically decide how much damage you're going to put out into the researcher to get him low enough that you can one-shot him, but that he will not die during that turn. So there I noticed that I did crit on Hannet on him, and so I have to factor that into my thought process later down the line when I'm choosing how much boost I'm going to use. And then you can see our turn 4 is almost a carbon copy of our turn 1. We are getting shield breaks in with Tressa, along with Arrow Storm and Shower of Arrows, and then having Anyas come in for a mid-turn heal, since the ads will be attacking before us, since it is a post-break turn. And you can see our turn 5, Anyas going for the full regen now, and then we are capping out our Scarecrow Shower just to start getting use in his BP, and it's still using Arrow Storm, Adia back onto attacking Varkyn. And following our pattern, this is going to be our second break on the ads, and so next turn we're basically going to do a carbon copy of what we did on our turn 3 during the first break. The difference being that we are going to also be putting Debilitate down on our Dancer as we are starting to work towards the kill for her. As you can see, this is a very, very SP heavy fight on a bunch of hunters and warriors who do not have the best SP pools. So I definitely recommend losing a slot out on mana recovery items, spirit scarves, stuff like that. I have them allotted for my team in such a way that basically every single time a character stops being used, its mana is basically out. There was also another variation of this composition that I was using that basically killed the Dancer on this turn. However, it could not be consistent without having awakenings, and so therefore I planned a composition around not being able to kill the Dancer this turn, and instead leaving her up and being able to survive. However, for our turn 7, we pretend that the ads aren't there, and we go straight onto Varkyn to get a 10 shield break, using Anyas' basic staff attack, Sophia with her triple ice, Fior with her triple slash, and Adia with her triple slash. This is a turn that we basically have to take if we're going to do Varkyn in 2 breaks. He has a ton of shields, and again, I want to give you guys the option to be able to put damage on him here during his first break if you need it. Fortunately for me, my team does not, so Viola will be debilitating the Researcher once again to get more damage out on him instead of on Varkyn this turn. Because of that, I am only debilitating with 2 BP instead of the 3 that I would be putting on Varkyn. This allows me to put 3 on Varkyn later on down the line. But just as it says on my turn order sheet that I showed earlier, if you are doing damage to Varkyn during this break, then just put the BPs on Viola in reverse. This is again one of those things where you're going to have to attune your damage and see what you can get away with so that you can consistently get him not summoning his Wisp until you want him to at the very, very end of the fight. And so in this video, I'm going to opt out of hitting Varkyn at all during this break, and instead I'm going to focus on finishing up the Dancer ad and lowering the HP of the Researcher. Max boosting for a trifold thrust on Tressa, doing Arrow Storm and Shower of Arrows, along with recapping my regen on Anyas. Again, as noted in the turn order list, just make this your turn 10 if you are doing damage to Varkyn during turn 9. And with some lucky multi-hits from Hannet and some lucky crits along throughout the fight, my Dancer died without Tressa having to hit her, and so this damage is instead going to go onto the Researcher ad, which is again something that I'm going to take a mental note on with how hard I'm going to hit the Researcher for this turn. I have conserved the BP on Adia and Fior so that you can use anywhere from 0 to 3 to knock him into the 1-hit threshold. This doesn't have to be super exact, but the closer and the more you know your damage, the better you'll get at this. It'll become second nature eventually. Again, I did not use this strategy for my multi-clears. I only used this strategy about 8 times to make sure it was consistent. And in those 8 times, I got a very good gauge on where my damage was and how much BP I needed to use on Adia and Fior. And so you'll see in this video, I perfectly lower him down between the 2 girls so that he has just a sliver of HP left, and no matter what I hit him with, he will fall over when I want him to. And with that turn done, we are now set up for our end game. Now we are going to be breaking shields off of Varkyn and setting ourselves up with a nice little cure all, just to make sure that we are reasonably healthy and that Fior isn't going to get owned during this turn. We are switching Fior here to a Crumbling Cut instead of the Trifold, so that she can cap out that defense down that Viola put on him earlier. But if you wanted to make this turn a little bit more RNG, you could have her just do her regular trifold for the 3 hits, and then use Sophia's Raging Ice Wind so that she can possibly give him ice resistance down for his break in the following turns. That would of course make your nuking power on Sophia for his 2 break turns very, very powerful. However, it does have the downside of being RNG, and when you're doing 100 reclears of the same fight over and over again, I personally don't go for it just to keep it more consistent. But it is an option to go for if you find yourself lacking on damage at the end of these 15 turns. And so this is going to be our final turn before we break him. So we're going to set him down to exactly 1 shield left, recast our regen, and finally finish off our researcher with a max swift trifold thrust from Tressa. If you've accidentally overdamaged him and he has already summoned the Wisp by this point, just replace that regen with a cure and you're good to go. It's still fine. Nothing we're using is random target, and the Wisp won't be able to kill us while Varkyn is broken all by itself. And so now here we are on our turn. We are going to break him. He has summoned the Wisp, but it doesn't matter because it's not going to have enough turns to actually do anything to us. We're going to switch Viola over to an anti-attack, just in case you have to go for an extra 16th turn, in case Varkyn lives with a sliver and you just have to hit him a few more times. But the rest of the gang is using 2 BP each and their single target nukes going in on Varkyn here. Unfortunately here, there is going to be a couple damaged units when you're going into this turn, meaning that Fiora might not be full HP, capped off to be able to use her extra 20% sword passive. But ideally, you are coming into these turns with overkill, and you do not necessarily need it to get him dead. And so now we're going into the final turn. We are going to max BP everything, along with a cure on Anya, since Viola doesn't really do that much damage, so she's not really going to be offering anything. And in the off chance that you do kill him early on accident, and one of your sword waifus or Sophia ends up attacking into the Wisp, getting countered and dying, you want the rest of your team in the front row capped off, being healed, so that way they can survive the regular attack before the Wisp disappears like that. And voila, easy, mostly static, little bit of BP fluctuation, 8-minute clears that you can do over and over again without having to have awakenings at all. And that's the guide. I hope it helped you out. I hope that you have good luck farming your Varkyn. He is a really, really good unit to have, and he will be a mainstay in any light-based team for now in the foreseeable future. As previously mentioned, I have guides like this for Tikilin and Glossum. Those should be on screen now, so click on those if you have not watched them already. And on my channel, I also have guides for EXP farming and the weapon farming for the stuff used in this video. So check them out if that sounds like something that would be helpful for you. Subscribe if you want more content like this, and I will see you guys next time for either the Twilight farming guide or for Lito's arena preparation. See you guys then. Much love, stay safe, booyah.